All right, let's do this message. So stay. Hold on, I'm going downstairs, but I'm outside. So it's like stay away from people that I guess that people want to put you down and stuff. Stay away from these people like that try putting you down, and even people putting you down in silence, because silence is still it's still talking. Silence is still, you gotta understand what silence is. Silence is powerful too. So it's like these people can talk down on you in silence, because you gotta understand. Let's say I'm doing some great work for God, and people just stay silent about it and don't want to talk about it, don't want to mention it. You gotta understand these people will be dealt with for that, because you gotta understand silence is even a way of speaking. Because the fact that nobody is, everybody's being silent when it comes to doing great things for God, and everybody stays silent about all the great things you do for Jesus' kingdom, the real black Jesus, and nobody wants to be in the truth or do work for God. You gotta understand what these people are. They silent for the devil. They are the devil's people because they're silent. They don't want to speak nothing. You gotta understand. Just because they don't speak nothing, that's probably sometimes even worse type stuff. Like, so I want to get that out of the air, or out of the whatever the fuck you call it. I just want to get that shit said, because I'm like, you're not supposed to be silent. You're not supposed to be silent. Like, people think they're supposed to be silent and shit when it comes to the things of God. No, no. Following God, you're not supposed to be silent. I'm just saying, like, if someone's pushing out the truth, and people are silent about it, does not want to praise them for doing God's will, and for you gotta think, because even God's gonna praise us in heaven too, when we get crowns, when we get all sorts of gifts from God, based off the works we do. So you gotta understand that. So now what I'm gonna say about this is shit, like, it pretty much gonna, obviously I don't care about pissing people off, obviously, but yeah, I'm saying, you selling your soul to the devil by being silent. That's a contract with Satan. If you are seeing someone doing great things for God, and you silent, you don't want to praise them for that, or you know award them for that, or any of that stuff. You understand? These people don't want you to make it out, because you understand being silent, is a yeah, being silent is very demonic. It's very demonic. It's very satanic. Being silent is satanic. You understand? The devil moves off of silence. That's how the devil moves. It's based off of silence. A lot of times the devil uses that as a tactic. He's moving in silence, because you gotta understand. If someone's speaking loud for God in the real black Jesus and the truth, and people are silent, that's how you know they some secret jealous haters. That's how you know they some secret jealous haters. And they know what they have to do for the devil, because they have a contract with saying they have to be silent. They can't speak about great things for you, because they have a contract with saying. You gotta understand what contracts with saying is. You have to be silent. You cannot speak about certain things, because you have a contract with Satan. These people are in. I'll just call it an occult. It really is a cult, and like being silent. You understand? Because like, how can you talk to people and they just act all spiritually dead? They act like they don't know shit. They just act oblivious when it comes to the things of God and the real like Jesus and the truth. You know, and you understand, like, these people will be dealt with. And what was I saying at the beginning of this message? Yeah, I just kind of freestyling this, but yeah, it's like they do not want you to prosper. They do not want you to make it type stuff. I've already done a message about that, but like, I'm just saying, like, these people do not want you to prosper, because you gotta understand, just because they silent does not mean they actually good people. No, no, it means they evil people, because they silent, because they don't. You understand how silence works, how silence talks. You understand? So these people will be dealt with. These people will be dealt with. You never saw Jesus being silent. You never saw that shit, right? You never saw the real black Jesus, or like, come on, man, come on. Every real follower of God can't be silent. So you understand, you can't. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. But what else I gotta say? Yeah, it's like people do not want you to make it out type stuff. So it's like, yeah, like, people don't want you to make it out. That's true. That's true. Like, people really don't want you to make it out of poverty, or make it out of certain things in life. Like, people really don't want to see you succeed type stuff. So it's like that's just that's just the truth type stuff. So it's like you understand like how that shit works too. What else I want to say? What else I want to say? Yeah, you know, obviously, people have their reasons. Like people have their reasons why they don't say nothing, why they don't, you know, praise God's people. You understand? Like you understand? They have their motives. They have their reasons. They have their, you know, devilish ways on why they don't, you know, care type stuff. You gotta understand? They just don't care. Cause you gotta understand, they see that you are headed to heaven and they're gonna burn in hell type stuff. So they see that, you know. So a lot of them can see that, and a lot of them just I don't know, but like, you know, it's pretty clear. You know, people hate God. People hate God type stuff. So it's like that's pretty clear, you know. So like I said, like at this point, everybody chose their sides. So it's like, you know, will people change? At this point in life, I don't think people are gonna, you know, I'm gonna be honest, like, you know, we'll keep going. We'll keep going with this generation and everything. But, you know, Satan will be dealt, dealing with these people. Satan will be dealing with these people with, like, you know, like punishing these people. Satan will be punishing these people. And you understand, like, people live their life they want to live, and they don't want to live righteously. They don't want to live righteously. They want to out here deceive type stuff too. Like there's a lot of people that want to deceive type stuff. There's a lot of people that don't want to do nothing. So I was talking about like Christians too. Like all they want to do is try to deceive people. That's all Christians want to do. They want to deceive everybody and make them follow the white Jesus, all sorts of weird stuff, Christianity, false doctrines and everything. Like they want them to follow. They want you to follow Christianity. They don't want you to follow God. You know, Christians want you to follow Christianity. But what about God? You know, what about God? You know, whatever happened to actually following God type stuff? You know, but like I said, like everything's, you know, playing the way it should be, and when people end up in that lake of fire, it's gonna be too late for them. It's gonna be too late for them to, you know, reach out and you know, and you know, praise, give credit to where it's due type stuff. You know, you understand, like obviously, like I said, like God is first. Jesus, God is first type stuff. The revelation of Jesus and God is first. But at the same time, like there's nothing wrong with, you know, you gotta think, because even God praises us and rewards us for the works we put in. So Christians want to be dumb about that and act like whoever want to be dumb about that and say, oh yeah, we're not supposed to, you know, no, that nigga, that's come on. There's a difference between giving credit to where it's due and straight up worshiping type stuff, you know. But I don't know. But yeah, you know, like definitely, like, you know, like succeeding is what, you know, God's people will have. Like we will go down this route to where we will succeed. We will be above, and there's nothing the world can do about it. There's nothing people can do about it. We will be above everyone. We will be above everyone. And yeah, like nobody can win against God's people type stuff, you know. That now we can go through tests, we can go through certain stuff, we can go through all this, you know, drama. We're gonna go through it. Like God can straight up do us people straight dirty and forsake us for times and stuff like that, and have us go down different routes. Like with me, I'm going down like a route to where like I have to be tortured on medication type stuff. So, and then now I'm knowing how it feels to be forsaken. I'm knowing how it feels to, you know, just feel betrayed by God. I already know how it feels to be betrayed by God. I already know how all that stuff feels, you know. So I know how it feels to, you know, be cutthroat by God. I know how it feels to, you know, for God to forsake you. You know, I know how it feels to be forsaken by God. And that's the test. That's what God is putting me through, is I'm being forsaken by him. You know, I'm being forsaken by him type stuff. So, and what gets so fucking crazy is people don't give a fuck. So it's like I'm forsaken by God and people don't care. Like, ain't that crazy? And like I said in the past message, like this is what I was saying too in that past message is yeah, like God's making it the point why he created hell type stuff, because you gotta understand, like, Jesus cannot do nothing, you know. You know what I'm saying? Jesus can do what he can do. Yeah, I'm saved from hell and everything, but at the same time, like, I'm gonna go through it and there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing Jesus can do about it. It's what God's doing. So it's like, you know, but this is out of God's doing. This is what God wants. So it's like, and honestly, God is trying to prove a point. You know, God is trying to prove a point. God is trying to show off his power. And yeah, like, God is trying to prove a point. He's trying to show off his power. And like this is what they're doing. Like, you know, it actually feels like God is on the enemy side. Like, it really does. Like, it feels like God is literally on, like, the side of all my enemies and stuff too. Because I do have enemies. I do have enemies. I do have people that want to see me downfall. I do have all those people. I do have people that move in silence against me. I do have people that, you know, that went against me, that, cutthroat me, that, like, snaked me, whatever you want to call it. Like, people's done that to me. Like, and yeah, I have been betrayed, cutthroat, you know, I have been done straight dirty, and it honestly feels like God is on their side. That's what it feels like at times. It feels like God is on my enemy's side, and that's really how I feel. That's why I did, you know, that's partly why I did music about, like, saying, like, okay, I'm the new Lucifer type stuff, or like whatever the fuck, because, I don't know how to describe it, but it was like, I was just mocking the devil with that shit, saying I'm yeah, you know, I was basically saying how I must be the devil or some shit, like, must I be Satan type shit, because that's how I'm being treated, like, stuff. So it's like like even though I am on God's side too, it's just like I was just mocking that shit about the devil and shit like that, about people, oh, they think I'm the devil, like, you know. So that's what I want to say about that. And then what else? Yeah, hold on. Yeah, it's like I feel like it definitely feels like that. It definitely feels like, you know, yeah, like what I'm going through right now. It definitely feels like I'm forsaken type stuff. It definitely, which I am forsaken. It just, is it for eternity? Probably not. Probably not. I know it's not gonna be for eternity, but that's what I'm saying. Like, people, God is using that to prove a point why He created hell, because you understand, I'm being forsaken, but these people who just look at me being forsaken and don't do nothing about it, you understand, God is proving a point why He's sending them to hell. You understand, like, you can't just let me be forsaken and not do nothing about it, and then just, I don't know. I mean, for whatever particular people that may be, but like, that's just like, yeah, it's like to be my enemy instead of trying to support me. Now, that's crazy. That's crazy. Um, you gotta understand. You gotta support the truth. You gotta support the truth. And if you don't support God's truth, you're not supporting me type stuff. So it's like, you know, especially with the whole medication crap too. Like, that's what I'm really talking about too. In my situation, is me being on that medication crap. Yeah, nobody really, like, yeah, like, nobody really cares. Nobody really cares about all that stuff, about the suffering I'm going through because of, you know, all that junk, and nobody is, you know, not 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 anyone is really, stepping up in my life and really vouching for me, and really, you know, and that's what I'm saying. That, like, it feels defeat. It feels like defeat, because nobody is out here fighting for me. It's like I'm fighting for myself. Nobody's out here fighting for me, saying, vouching for me. I'm doing this by myself, and in real life type stuff, and in this, yeah. So it's like there's not one person that's being like, oh yeah, Casey, la 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 la. shouldn't, be on this stupid, you know, treatment shit. Like, nobody's understanding to the fact of that stuff, and don't get me wrong, I have other people, through TRL type stuff, those people, but, like, everybody else don't care though. So it's like, everybody else don't give a fuck type shit. So that's kind of what I want to say too. And, yeah, so like I said, these people are gonna be dealt with. Like that's proving a point. That proves why God created hell type stuff. Because how can someone just watch someone suffer so much and nobody does anything to do nothing about it? It's like it just proves exactly why hell is a real place. And these people have the blood is on their hands. The blood is on their hands. They chose the devil. The blood is on their hands. And you understand, God is using me. God is using me. Like, how the hell can they not understand God is using me to rebuke the whole mental health, behavioral health system? Like, God is using me to rebuke that whole system. So people siding with the majority, you understand, because that shit's the majority. They're enemies with God. So like, because you understand, like, God is not rolling with the majority. But people are so dumb, they just roll with the majority type stuff, even knowing that's not the narrow path. Like, you're supposed to be going down the narrow path. You're not supposed to be going down the majority route, because the majority going to hell type stuff. Like, that's already biblical. That's already biblical. So it's like, it's sad, it's sick, it's very demonic, and that's what I'm dealing with in this situation. It's like, yeah, but yeah, yeah, like I said, like, I got a lot of good stuff going on for my future. It's just like, I gotta get past this test stuff too. So I'm just using myself as an example, like, or at least this is what I'm going through. So it's like, you know, um, and these people will be dealt with. They're not gonna win. They're sick in the mind. They're sick. These people are sickos. Like, these people are straight up sickos. Like these people, you gotta understand, like, you gotta understand what it's doing, what it is. Like I said in that one message about rape. That's like seeing a kid being molested by some weird ass dude or some shit, and you seeing that and you can actually do something to help, but you don't. That's what's going on with me. People are seeing me being molested by Satan. Like, these people are molesting me with Satan type stuff. That is molestation. You gotta understand what molestation is. That is molesting me. You gotta understand, they're allowing psychiatry, the witch doctors, the witchcraft system to molest me. So it's sick. It's sick, but that's the best way I can describe it too. It's like, I feel molested right now. I feel abused, molested. I feel tortured. You understand? This is mental torture, what they putting me through. So it's like, and this is molestation. So worse than that too, because, like, you understand? Like, it's like a kid getting, that's like a kid getting molested, and they don't do nothing to help when they can. That's what's going on with me. I'm being molested by the devil and all these weird ass systems, and people think it's just like, you gotta understand this is worse than that. Because you gotta understand, like, imagine the kid being molested and they grow up and go to hell. Okay, that's my point. This is worse than that. Because to God, this is worse, what they doing to me, than a kid being molested. Because if that kid got molested and they end up in hell in the end, then okay, God obviously don't care. But like me being molested by the system, God looks at that like, okay, Casey's going to heaven type stuff. So it's like, it's even worse with, you understand, like, it's even worse than them letting the kid get molested type stuff. I don't know. That's the best way I can describe that. But yeah, it's like, it's sick, it's demonic, and they will be dealt with for this stuff. And there's no way out for them, because you understand, it's the same thing as allowing someone being molested, and you can actually do something to help, but you don't do it. That's like someone trying to walk into a school and kill a bunch of babies and children and or daycare, whatever, and shoot up a bunch of babies. And they just, and they have the ability to, let's just say, like, stop that from even happening, and they don't do it. That's what they're doing, and they're siding with the person that's doing it. That's doing it to everybody. I mean, doing it to all the kids and stuff. You know, like imagine. Let's put this as an example. Let's say a psychopath walks into a daycare and molests a bunch of babies and kills them. Let's use that as an example. The person be like, oh yeah, let's say that psychiatry in the system is the person molesting and killing a bunch of kids and babies in the daycare, and the person allows that to happen and sides with that. See what I mean? See my point? That's what they're doing. That's what these people are doing. That's not taking a stand for what's right. These people that do not help. That's exactly what they're doing. These people that don't do nothing about what I'm going through. That's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. They are doing that, and that's how God looks at it. You understand that? That's kind of like a parable, or whatever you would call it. I don't know what you would call that, but that's kind of like how God looks at it. That's why. Yeah, you understand. That's why there's hell. That's why there's hell for these people. So that being said, I just gotta add that in there and use this example. But that being said, much love, peace.